Hello and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club, and we're on the web at the loaclub.com. On these Hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This Hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues on our member conference line with live Q&A. Today's topic is 5 Law of Attraction tips for harnessing the power of attraction. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically, and our powerful free letting go process by going to the loaclub.com. So now we're going to welcome Robin, who will be bringing through Tara, and we welcome them as well. So over to you guys.
Welcome back to our discussions on some simple ways of taking advantage of the power of attraction that is always working for you. Of course, many of you engaged with us here, live or through the recordings, have a very good idea of who you are and how you create your world, a world that's uniquely and individually yours. And as we go through our 5 Law of Attraction tips, our discussions will be reviewing and reinforcing the ideas in this non-physical model of reality. To you we say, don't just listen, get involved. Use these next few minutes here as a creative experience. Some of you will be more in the habit of seeing the world as something physical and real and external to you and shared with everybody else on the planet. To you, we suggest taking these tips at face value because you don't have to accept our model for these ideas to work for you. We say the law of attraction defines everything in heaven or on earth, but whether that idea makes sense or seems like complete nonsense, these tips can serve you well. Here they are. Tip number 1, notice how you're feeling. Tip number 2, change direction when you drift into feeling bad. Tip number 3, live from within the question, what do I want now? Tip number 4, be obsessively compulsive about appreciating everything. Tip number 5, expect the best of everything. We've covered all these law of attraction tips before, of course, but as we revisit them here, let's see if we can open up some new ideas about creating what you want from life. And let's begin by being clear about those words above, the power of attraction. As we discussed last week, the law of attraction is not something you can decide to use or not use, any more than you can decide to use or not use gravity. It's always on. But unlike gravity, it's not something that exists only in realms like your space-time world. Every entity that exists, every individuation of source, is always experiencing a context that matches who or what they are. And also, unlike gravity, it's not one of the many forces that influences your world and our world. It's the absolute and foundational force that creates everything, including, in your world, gravity itself. Let's also be clear about who's in charge here. In your world, you are. The only entity that is at choice about shaping you and your context is you. There's no entity of any sort in any place that's keeping tabs on you and arranging things independently of you. Yes, we know you've focused down into all this physicalness. And yes, we know it's immediate, and it's in your face, and it's very engaging. But it's just the stage for your play. It does not contain or control the consciousness that is you. You control it. And can you see what that means? It means this power of attraction, which is totally absolute, is your power. So let's get to our law of attraction tips and talk about harnessing it. Tip number 1, notice how you're feeling. It seems almost too simple or obvious to mention, and yet it's key. And it's also something you all forget to do at times, sometimes for days on end. How you feel is your directional indicator. When you're feeling good, you're aligned with your desires, which is to say you're heading towards the things you want. You've been storing your chosen preferences for a lifetime, and your superconscious knows it all, even the things you mightn't have thought about consciously for years. When you're feeling good, you're moving in alignment with those preferences, and vice versa. Hence the importance of noticing how you feel. We've told this story before, but it's worth repeating because it talks to both of those things we described above. The absoluteness of the power of attraction that you have and the importance of feeling good. This one was watching the final of the men's singles during the Wimbledon Tennis Championship. Federer was playing Djokovic, and he really wanted Djokovic to win. And just to really put this story in perspective here, you should know that he had TiVo'd the game and was watching it the next day without knowing the outcome. Now, as you always hear us say, by law of attraction, there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have. So the question is, could he choose a win for Djokovic? In a physical, out there, external, one-version world, the answer is, of course not. It's simple. Not only are there the players themselves, there's millions of spectators and all of them have their own preferences. And added to that in this particular example is the fact the match was long over by the time he got to seeing it. Let's get real here, Tara, you might be thinking. You have to be sensible about this. There's got to be some practical, real-world limitations to this. Well, we are being sensible. If you think you live in a shared one-version world, an absolute law of attraction makes no sense at all. You don't. You live in a virtual reality which has infinite versions. It's your world, and you're choosing, moment by moment, which version to attract. There's an often asked sports question. If opponents in a match both believe in the law of attraction, who wins? There is no one answer to that question, because the true answer is, of course, both. It depends which version of the game you're referring to. And note that this is a question about life in general, because if you're in a shared world, you're all, in a sense, competing to make the world be as you want it to be. But you're not. You're creating your version. And those other consciousnesses are creating their version. To the extent that those versions are in resonance at times, so those shared experiences become a part of both worlds. The untrained observer sees them as a part of one world, but it is not. It is a merging of multiple worlds. So, back to our story. Next day, this one is there looking forward to the match. He settles in with his beer and crackers and gets into it. It turns out to be a very close match. And at one point he notices, it was a good catch by the way, that his excitement about and enjoyment of the game was being compromised. He had started to worry that Djokovic was going to lose. So he stopped. And he went through a little internal conversation like the one we just described. He affirmed to himself what he wanted. He chose to expect his man to win. He chose not to worry. He chose to really enjoy the game. And he created the outcome he wanted. And enjoyed it all the more because he did it consciously. And some of you are thinking, but nothing. Think about this. Because if you can get your mind around what went on in this simple story, you'll see what's going on with you in your life. You'll see how powerful you are because there are infinite versions of reality. There's a version where Federer won. You and this one are version aligned to some extent in matching worlds. So probably in your version of reality, Djokovic won. But can you see that's up to you? And can you also see how important it is to notice how you feel? And then, tip number 2, change direction when you drift into feeling bad. When you find you're heading in the wrong direction, stop. Turn around. Even as this one hit the pause button on the recording of the tennis match, hit the pause button on life. Find a way, there and then, to pivot. Use the process. Use the letting go process. Use a distraction. Use something. But don't settle for feeling bad. Ever. And then, tip number 3, live from within the question, what do I want now? You came here to experience the joy of creating new things in a very focused world in a very focused way. Those creative moments are your most joyful experiences. Don't settle for anything less than the world as you want it to be. At one point before that Wimbledon final, Federer was asked what he needed to do to beat Djokovic. He said, believe. An amazing answer, and of course, exactly correct. Now, does that mean by choosing to believe he can win, that he will play better? Perhaps. But choosing to play better does not mean that your opponent will not also choose to play better. What is important in this situation is to believe in the end result, to believe you will win, but not to worry about how. We see many of you thinking of what you want and then getting caught up in the dreaded hows, or more often, how on earths. There's always a million hows, and all of them flowing and easy. How is not your job. Then law of attraction tip number 4. Be obsessively compulsive about appreciating everything. When you're appreciating, it's almost impossible to be feeling negative and creating negatively. So go, as Abraham says, on rampages of appreciation. Appreciate small things. Appreciate big things. Appreciate common things. Appreciate uncommon things. Appreciate sunny days. Appreciate rainy days. Appreciate people. Appreciate animals. Appreciate the world. Appreciate who you are. Appreciate spectacular ordinary things. Appreciate ordinary things. Appreciate your washer and dryer. Appreciate toilet paper. And what happens when you do that? Miracles, that's what. Why is appreciation so powerful? Well, let's think about it. What are you doing when you appreciate? You're choosing to feel good about something. You're taking some aspect of you that's being reflected back to you as a part of your world, as a part of your context, and you're affirming to yourself that this is one of the fun parts of your creation. To appreciate is to focus on what you want. And when you do that, you take wanted aspects of your life and you weave them into bolder and bigger part of your expectation tapestry. Appreciation is the antidote to worry. Worry is simply a waste of creative energy. Appreciation is the opposite of worry. Appreciation is an act of conscious choice. Appreciation takes you where you want to go. And so to tip number 5, expect the best of everything. The best, you see, is whatever you define as the best. If you choose to believe in new things that make your heart sing, it creates within you an expectation map that becomes the new story of your life. There are no limits to this power of yours. There are no limits to your life except your imagination. And that has no limits except what you choose to settle for. We say, don't settle. We say, choose whatever you want, and then choose again. Choice is your middle name. You're here to make new choices. You're here to create whatever you want. Pollyanna got a bum rap. Pollyanna had it right. We say, be a Pollyanna. Good. This morning, as we were joyfully mixing it up with this one and finalizing all of this for today, his mind, of course, goes to the idea of how about me here and now? And then he thinks of this day that he's about to create out of his well-established and well-practiced habits of thought. And he makes a new decision to create some new non-status quo things in his world. So let's engage together here and do a little of that right now. Tip number 1, notice how you're feeling. We know that it can seem almost trivial to talk about your feelings, but they are a powerful guide, and many of you ignore them. From where we sit, we say, pay attention. How do you feel right now? How do you feel about your day that's coming up? Notice. Tip number 2, change direction when you drift into feeling bad. We call it pivoting. Nothing is more important than feeling good, because feeling good means you're aligned with your desires. It means you're heading towards what you want, and vice versa. Don't settle for less than peace and calm and contentment, and allow yourself to move into joy and excitement and ecstasy. Tip number 3. Live from within the question, what do I want now? What do you want now? What do you want for today? There's enormous power in just simply asking yourself this question on a regular basis. How many days have you lived through without even getting yourself onto this launch platform? Set a new intention now to keep that imagination of yours fired up and ready to roll. Tip number 4. Be obsessively compulsive about appreciating everything. Look around you right now. Find a few mundane things to appreciate and really get into it. Good. Then think about your world of today. Think of a few things or people to appreciate. Really get into it. Good. Then think of your world in its totality. Here you are in this magnificent, focused, space-time reality you've created. What a game. What a hoot. What a magnificent creator you are. Appreciate it now. Appreciate you. Good. Tip number 5. Expect the best of everything. Think for a moment now of your expectations of today. You have 1,000,000 of them. What could you choose to expect differently? Pick some simple things and shift them. That thing that's probably going to happen. What if it doesn't? What if things turn out just a little better than you're used to expecting? Or a whole lot better? Good. So there you have them. Number 1, notice things. Notice how you're feeling. Number 2, pivot. Change direction when you drift into feeling bad. Number 3, imagine. Live from within the question, what do I want now? Number 4, be a Pollyanna. Be obsessively compulsive about appreciating everything. Number 5, expect joy. Expect the best of everything. Expect a little surprise and delight. At first, do these things consciously. You can, if you want to, and choose to, and set your mind to it. Then practice them into doing them superconsciously. That's what mastery is. You too can become a master at this stuff, ascended or not. And now we'll talk some more of these things as we move into our longer discussion.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with live Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You too can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. So now our longer discussion continues with Q&A for our members on our member conference line.